I've lived in Worcester only 12 years right now. Before that, I was living in Venezuela. And, my first year, I was living on a third floor in a triple decker, and rent was $750. This was 12 years ago, then again. And as an international student, that still is extreme to me. That was a lot, but affordable. And working on campus, you can just uh, make ends meet to some extent, and you try to cover rent. And so I was trying my very best to be able to cover rent. So I had to split the apartment with other students from Worcester State University, and I believe it was true until um, the beginning of 2016, where when the landlord uh, kind of asked to leave the place um, because they wanted to remodel the apartment or the attic. It was pretty much just an attic with a kitchen. And because rent was increasing exponentially. And so, however, by then I was already working as a full-time teacher. And so I could definitely afford something else and moved to a smaller apartment. It was a just one unit apartment with two bedrooms, and rent was, I believe back then was $2,000. So going jumping from 750 to $2,000 was an increase, and it was 2 years. So obviously I was in a different position renting an attic of three bedrooms. It was very spacious, uh, but it was still an attic. And there were a lot of flaws with it. One day a bat came in, and so there were definitely flaws with the apartment. And so my guess is that's why the landlord was renting it for way less, and also renting it for students specifically because it was so close to Worcester State University. Um, However, I think I was living in a bubble with it where I didn't really realize how rent or how high rent was in Worcester until I have to leave that apartment and rent my own place. And the change was brutal, was really mind-blowing. And as a teacher, you can only make so much. And so uh, I would say, you know, an entire paycheck would just go for rent. And so then after that has been a battle. It's been a battle trying to find something that accommodates that same amount of money, the same price range for rent. I believe um, rent didn't increase until the next year. It went up like 150 more dollars. That was 2016 by now, or back then. And then it would just kept going up and up and up. In 2018, I believe I moved out of that unit to a condo. It was a one bedroom condo, and rent, I have to go moved from closer to Burncoat area to a little farther away to the outskirts of Worcester to find cheaper rent. So I wasn't as close to downtown or the most common areas to where most jobs are, so to speak. So I have to go a little farther away from the city to Grafton Street. And so just to be able to find then again a one bedroom apartment in a condo where rent was, I believe, 2250. It was $2,250. And this was 2018. Now I understand that there were amenities such as a dumpster, so I didn't have to buy the yellow bags, perks like that. However, it wasn't the most luxurious place. It was, just affordable enough to live and be there. and I stayed there for 2 years. 2 years? No, three, 3 years. And r- 3 years afterwards, rent was already getting to $2,500. That's when I decided to, okay, if rent is this much, what would it be then to have a mortgage? Would it be the same? Would it be much more beneficial? What is the difference then of renting and trying to buy a house? And so that's when I ventured to trying to buy a property uh, where I could definitely find the same price range for a mortgage. And it took yeah, quite a few months. I would say half a year to try to find something affordable since houses in 2021, 2022 were over $300,000. And if you find something around that price, it was a shack. It was pretty much something crumbling to the ground. And so I ended up trying to apply for a townhouse, one of those duplex. Uh, Obviously, try not to get into the trap of HOA, and because I would not be able to afford it if I can still afford a mortgage. And so that's when I got accepted to finance a duplex, a townhouse uh, near Holy Cross, the College of Holy Cross. So then again, not centric, but still in the city. And um, so my mortgage was $2,100. So it was way less than the rent I had. And um, that's when I said, and I started telling my friends and everybody around me, I think this is the time, this was the beginning of 2022. I think it's much better to try to buy a house because mortgage will be way less than rent. Rent is off the roof. How is it that people who make less or make minimum wage or less than $50,000, have to pay so much on rent when should try to afford a property and find, a less a monthly payment. So it doesn't make any sense that rent was way higher than a mortgage payment. Obviously, I was not buying a house that cost a $500,000 as properties are right now at the moment, but it was still over $300,000. And so just thinking that buying a property so with such a price tag and still have a mortgage that was much more affordable than rent. Let's not forget, I was in a one bedroom apartment in a condo paying $2,500. And then I went to a two-bedroom house, townhouse with a backyard and everything for $2,100. So just that example to me was mind-blowing. And to go through it, I mean, I was delighted. I was excited to say, "Oh my God, my mortgage is way less than your rent." What kind of trap is this? In what war are we living? Is this Worcester or not? And so, unfortunately, I have to sell my house for personal reasons, and last year. And so, ever since, I've been renting. And then again, now I live in a two-bedroom apartment, and the time being for $2,500. And I'm not even in the inner city. Now I'm in West Boylston Street. And so then again, the outskirts of the city, just to find something affordable and close enough to work to be able to not commute too much. And so then thinking back on that is it's demoralizing. It's frustrating to think that rent, it's so high. It's as high as getting, paying for your own property. So there's no distinction because rent, it's allegedly, to me, the idea of rent should be I can't afford a house because it's so expensive, so I should rent to try to at least save some to be able to get there to the point of buying a property. and it's completely opposite. It's the complete opposite at the moment. Nowadays, I'm an immigrant, and so I can't even think of getting a mortgage again because the administration doesn't allow immigrants to get a mortgage. And so, too bad that I had to sell my house because now I realize that I can't get a loan for a new one. This was early 2022. I believe I closed the house. The closing was March 2022. Um, I think because of the tax property, mortgages went higher for people who have mortgage at the moment. I believe it went a little higher now if you have a current mortgage. But then again, I don't have my house anymore, so I'm not sure how much the difference is at the moment. Um, but then again, even if that happens, having your own property, let's say when $100 or $200, when I was paying only $2,100 mortgage, uh, if it went up by $200, it will still be less than what I'm paying right now for rent, and it will still be in the comfort of your own property, if that makes sense. It's also mind-boggling to say that there is no balance in the way rent happens in the city or in the entire state. Trying to live in the outskirts is still trying to, find a calm area where there's not much traffic, so on and so forth, but rent is still so high. And then the closer you get to the city, it's way higher for much smaller property. I have friends living in those new complexes by Shrewsbury Street just because they work at WPI and they get closer. However, a one bedroom apartment, it's already $2,500. And so what exactly is the standard? How are we basing the price of rent off or from that it changes so drastically depending on the size and where the location is. I don't understand. It's the same city. So what I've found myself doing before, right now, compared to when I was living in my own property, um, is trying to save gas as much as I can. I don't turn the heat as often as I used to, even though then again I come from Venezuela, which is a hot country, and so my comfort zone is to be in the heat, and now I have to wrap myself in blankets and so on and so forth to try to just deal with it because gas is so expensive. In terms of food. I think it's about the same. I've never struggled much with when it comes to food, but I don't go to supermarkets that increase just my monthly expenses, such as I don't know, Market 32. I would never go to Market 32. I will go to the same uh, places where I can find affordable foods, such as Price Right or Aldi or even Walmart. And so that has been a jumping factor. Before I used to go to Stop and Shop, but now I have to go to these different places to try to, even save a penny if possible. In terms of transportation, well, I have my own car, so I don't take the public transportation. Um, but with the current price of gas for cars, I realize that I tend not to go places anymore. Like I was very used to going to Boston 2 or 3 times per month. Now I go, if any, once or none per month. And I've been trying to avoid long commutes because of the price of gas. My goal obviously was to try to buy another property. Um, with the savings that I had from my previous home. But then again, not being able to access a mortgage. Uh, I've been trying just to save as much as I can. Um, yeah. And in 2022, when I bought the property, and my mortgage was way less than rent, I would say try to buy a property because it's you're investing in a property and still paying about the same amount of money. I know it sounds overwhelming and it sounds complicated, and it is. Buying a property, it's an overwhelming and complicated uh deal. However, it only requires time and dedication. And so why not to invest that money, huge, that increased monthly payment of 2,200, $2,500, $3,000 when you can invest it on your own property. Um, there are many opportunities, the FSA, I think that's what it's called, or some, it has a different name when you're a first-time buyer of a property. You can get discounts from here and there. There are different programs that could help you if you're, a resident of the US or a citizen. And so I think my answer would be that if in 2022 and right now at the moment, since I can access those opportunities, I would say try to find, an affordable, decent place because I pay $2,500 at the moment, but $2,500 is also a very small apartment in some areas in Worcester. And so don't go for the first thing that you find. Try, just be patient, um, and try to find rent and before the fall for sure.